Mr. Speaker.
Stuart Nash.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. You know, what a lot of people don't realise is that about 80% of all legislation that passes through this House is actually done in a bipartisan way. You know, we all support this. We like the sort of regulation. 80%. Well, bipartisan, tripartisan, whatever it might be. But this is one of these bills, Mr. Speaker, where I know the Select Committee worked really hard on this because what's happened since 2008, since the financial crisis, I suppose, is there was a lack of, what's the term I'm using? There was a lack of confidence, I suppose, in a lot of our financial markets and the auditing response, etc., and actually a lack of confidence in the people who were charged with carrying out a lot of the duties in terms of looking after people's investments or that sort of stuff. And so what this bill does is it's just another piece of legislation that actually improves the confidence and improves the level of transparency of our whole financial markets structure. I did have to laugh when Chris Bishop, when my colleague Carmel Sepuloni said they were disappointed in the Minister of Commerce, and Chris Bishop did say, just wait. I'm not too sure, Mr. Speaker, if Chris Bishop thinks he is going to be the new Minister of Commerce, but maybe he is. They talk about what goes on in our caucus. Well, I think if I was the Minister of Commerce, and who is the Minister of Commerce these days? It used to be Mr. Foss. I'm not too sure who the new Minister of Commerce is. Who is it? Mr. Whip? Paul Goldsmith. If I was Paul Goldsmith, I would be watching my back, actually, because Chris Bishop has those knives out. It's that old adage, they're the opposition, the enemy, they're the ones behind you. So well done. No, it's good to have someone who is ambitious, Mr. Speaker. There is no doubt about that, and I love your ambition, Chris. Well done. But
Order.
Mr. Bishop, just wait a couple of seconds. Mr. Speaker, there were, when I did say that we support this bill, and we do support it, but there were a couple of concerns that were brought up, and I would just like to bring those concerns up just finally, just to talk about them and just put them out there, and who knows, maybe there'll be amendments going forward. I wasn't a member of the Select Committee that deliberated on this bill. I didn't hear the submissions. I've had a look at a couple of them, and by and large it is a good bill, but a couple of the concerns that I did have, and one of them, Mr. Speaker, was actually on the commencement date. The commencement date for a lot of these is actually the 1st of April 2017. And I just sort of wondered aloud, unfortunately I didn't get a response from the Minister, I wondered why we were leaving this for 2.5 years, and whether there were a whole lot of processes that were going on at the time, or there were some things that need to be worked through the system. But I just thought that 2017 was a long time to wait for parts of this bill to be given the royal assent. And the unfortunate thing was the Minister actually couldn't tell me what parts of the bill were going to be implemented upon gaining royal consent and what parts had to wait for 2.5 years. I mean, it is the 31st, but I think it gains royal, or the last parts of these bills do gain royal assent on the 1st of April 2017, which makes sense from a financial year perspective, but it just provides a little bit of uncertainty which this bill is actually trying to mitigate. And there's nothing, uncertainty in legislation is not, we try to avoid that, I suspect. The other thing that I was a little bit concerned about, Mr. Speaker, was actually 36.1. This is the stuff around charities. Now, there are over 3,000 registered charities in New Zealand, and a lot of them go to the public of New Zealand seeking funds with wearing the badge of goodwill, as they should, because we're not a particularly giving society compared to a lot of others, and the truth of that is, and that is the truth, Mr. Speaker. However, when we do give money, we like to think that that money is given and is being used in good faith. And what this bill actually does is says if you're a large charity, Mr. Speaker, and by large the definition was you had an operating expenditure over $1 million, then you had to have your accounts audited. And that makes absolute sense, because if you've got an operating expenditure of over $1 million, it's a lot of money. You've solicited a lot of donations from a lot of hard-working Kiwis. But what it also said, Mr. Speaker, is that if you're a medium-sized charity, and that was the definition of medium-sized charity is between $500,000 and $1 million operating expenditure, you didn't actually have to get your accounts audited. What did have to happen is a qualified auditor did have to do a review of the accounts, but that's not a full audit. And I was just a little bit concerned that whenever New Zealanders do give money, they do like to think that it is given in good faith. And to me, $500,000 operating expenditure is quite a large charity. Wouldn't you agree, Sam? It's quite a large charity. And I would have...
Order.
Oh, sorry, Minister.
And I'm you. So, 2 errors.
Sorry. Yeah. You're right. I mean, I apologise for my indiscretions. This is something I'm passionate about, Mr. Speaker. Oh, some of them in this house during this speech. Oh, my wife is passionate. Yeah,
The member has 4.5 minutes left.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. I suppose the one thing I am passionate about, and the one thing that I really don't want to see again, is the confidence of the New Zealand public taking another knock because there's been a charity that hasn't had its accounts audited because they don't have to have them audited by law. And I just think that is a concern, and I would have liked to have seen this bill saying that medium-sized charities as well, and the definition of a medium-sized charity, excuse me, is an operating expenditure $500,000 to $1 million. I just think that should have there should have been a provision in the bill that said that these accounts had to be audited. But the interesting thing, Mr. Speaker, is in fact the fine for not undertaking the provisions was the same for medium and large-sized charities. So it's $50,000. So there does seem to be a little bit of inequity there. And the other thing also, Mr. Speaker, is that the cost of an audit really isn't that much when it does provide a level of investor certainty. It's around about, it's anything from $2,000 to $4,000. And I would have thought to provide your philanthropists or the people who are giving you money with a level of certainty, $4,000, $5,000 isn't much to pay at all to get that certainty at all, Mr. Speaker. But as mentioned, we do support this bill. It goes a long way in terms of reducing the restrictions on the legal forms for audit firms. Oh, there was one other point, which I think was quite important. It was part two. Part two was quite a technical part of this Act, Mr. Speaker, and so it's difficult to argue because it is very technical. But one thing it did do is it muzzled what the members of a disciplinary tribunal for the Chartered Accountants Institute could actually say in public. And I found this a little bit strange, and I wondered, Mr. Speaker, if this was dealing with an issue that had arisen before. So the Chartered Accountants came to the Select Committee and actually said, you know, we do have problems with people on our disciplinary committees actually going to the media. And
that is the bill for 2 minutes.
Oh, thank you very much. Oh. Phew, that's a relief. I thought I'd left my cell phone on for a second. Yeah. Mr. Speaker, can you believe that member has called this speech slim? Mr. Speaker, all members on this side heard that member speak, and I'll tell you what, Mr. Speaker, he used the word "you" 15 times in 15 sentences, and I was astounded that the Speaker, who I have immense respect for, didn't pull him up, because, Mr. Speaker, that member has been in the House for long enough to know that you do not turn to your colleagues and say you. I'm just quoting the member, Mr. Speaker. But anyway, what I was saying is I was interested in the fact, Mr. Well, I was about to take a point of order, Honourable Member, but I decided not to because the Speaker had given a ruling earlier on this week, I think it might have been, when he said it's not appropriate to give a point of order during a speech just because someone says the word "you" 2 or 3 times. But that member did cross the line, but I thought you were going hell for leather. I didn't want you to just implode in front of all your members. So that's why I didn't take a point of order, but I was quite tempted to. But anyway, Mr. Speaker, just back to the bill. I did think it was quite strange that what this bill did is muzzled what members of the disciplinary committee could actually say in public. And I thought, and the reason why I was a little bit surprised about that is because I think what needs to happen is when you are engaging an audit, when anyone is engaging, you, Mr. Speaker, myself, any charity is engaging an auditor, they need to know that that auditor is a person of good character. Can I make one more point,
The
Mr.
member's
Speaker?
time has expired.
Tim McIntyre.
Notwithstanding Mr